Hello and welcome to this edition of Big Fish Small Pod. Here on Big Fish Small Pod, we are presented by MPT College Consulting. That's mptcollegeconsulting.com. And everyone, this is going to be a great episode of Big Fish Small Pod Draft Edition. Last time we had this with our own Hector Rodriguez. Gave away some people that he had coming up, who the Marlins could potentially take, some sleeper picks they might have later in the draft. And we had to bring him on for this episode. He will not be sadly joining us on stream, but he will. We had to bring him on no matter what. It's not draft season without him. It is Jab. Jab, how are you doing? This is your season. This is your Mel, Todd, all those guys all put together.
Yeah, this is my World Series, as I always say. This is the week, especially, but the time of the year that I look forward to the most. And sadly, have some other plans, of course, on draft night. But excited that I can get on here and talk a little bit. So,
yeah, let's start off with the Marlins, just in the smack dab in the middle of the draft. They're potentially could go for a college bat. First time with this new front office going into the draft season. First off, who would even be available for the Marlins in that 16th pick?
Yeah, so I think, picking at 16 is a little tough because, especially this year, like the top half of the first round is so heavy with premier talent. Like, for instance, you got like Kaggs, Condon, Bazzana, Weatherholt. Like, those are four. And Hagen Smith, like those are five going to be pretty much major leaguers no matter what. And then you have the Marlins picking at 16, so you're not going to have obviously that ready to go. They're going to be amazing talent, but there's still guys in this draft that you can pick and I think are going to be big leaguers. And while they might not produce like the Bazzanas and the Kaggs and the Condons, I think they're still going to be and have a chance to be really solid big leaguers for the Marlins. So.
Yeah, and a lot of names that come up, Seaver King from Wake Forest, Cam Smith from FSU, maybe even potentially an underslot guy, maybe an advanced Honeycutt if they want to go ahead with the defensive skills. Talk to me about those three guys with Cam, Seaver, and Honeycutt.
Yeah, I think Cam Smith is probably the best one out of those three. He's XL frame, hit /331, 420, almost 600 in his college career. Great exit velos. This year in 24 showed great improvements in strikeout and walk rates. It's a super simple swing, no stride, level bat path, and he's able to keep it simple, like I said, because he's a really strong guy. And he shows potential as a everyday slugging third baseman. Defensively, arm to stick at third. The actions are a little clunky, so to speak, but I think he should be able to stick over there. He's a good enough athlete, shows, and that's proven in, his home to first run times and the bags he was able to steal. I think out of those three, athletic-wise, in terms of just athlete overall, Seaver King's probably the best. He can play center field, shortstop, second. He can play pretty much any position. Shows, a really good max exit velo, but I think the biggest thing is he's a real free swinger. A lot of chase, a lot of whiff, which I think hurts him the most. And another thing that goes on to that, which kind of concerns me with him, is he had a lot of home runs at Wake, but a lot of them were, barely getting over, and Wake is a small park. So I think with him, the bat's a concern, but you're getting great defense and a great athlete if they want to go that route. And then with Honeycutt, it's kind of similar. I think I kind of like to look at evaluating these guys on like what the absolute worst, like what's the worst you're going to get in Honeycutt. That's, elite big league defensive center fielder. He won ACC Defensive Player of the Year twice, has a great arm, great speed, really good power. But him, I think it's actually worse than Seaver King. He just seems to chase, swing at stuff outside of the zone. He's pretty patient in the zone. But, with him and Seaver King, it's, if they can figure out that chase, those swing decisions, they'll have a really good big league career. But like I said, I think Cam Smith is the best out of the three, because even if he doesn't really stick at third, you can put him in right field because he's got the strong enough arm and the athleticism. So,
yeah, and going to this first one, it seems like the consensus for the Marlins, or looking at mocks, it's going to be a college bat, something that maybe a lot of fans, a lot of people are clamoring for the Marlins to draft. How do you maybe see it? Are you more in the line of a college bat, or how would you go about that first pick in 16?
Yeah, I think, the Marlins really need either, an infielder or a center fielder. And I think other than, Bryce Rayner, who's going to be way gone by the time the Marlins pick, it's kind of only college guys. And the way that the Marlins have played this year, they really need somebody that can get up there quick and make a difference. And I think out of the three you listed and some other guys like a Ryan Waldschmidt or a Carson Benj, those are guys that can, move up pretty quick. So.
Yeah, and for this draft, just how would you go about maybe the pitching side? I know for the Marlins, it'll probably be hitter heavy for the first couple picks and whatnot. But how would you classify this this pitching draft for just overall? How would you rank your prospects in pitching? Because it seems like the first couple picks, you mentioned Condon, Caglione, who's a little of both, and Bazana, just a lot of hitters, batters. How would you look at the pitching overall this draft?
Yeah, I think the pitching's kind of weird. Like I said, you have obviously Burns and Smith, like I said, who are the two runaway, elite guys. And you kind of get into, on kind of my board that I made and then some other guys' boards, it's kind of in like the 45, 55-ish range where you start seeing the college pitchers reappear, like the Ryan Johnsons, the Drew Beams, guys like that. And I think what I would like to see the Marlins do is take a hitter at 16 and 56 and then try and snag a high school guy at 70. And there's a guy that I really like in the 70 range, Carson Wiggins, who's up to upper 90s, up to 99, throws a mid-80s slider, throws a changeup that's, promising. As we know, the Marlins excel at adding changeups to guys' repertoire. And he does struggle with command and control, which is throwing him with a lot of the high school guys in that 70-80 range. But insane athlete, throws really hard. I think his ceiling could be as high as a number 2 starter, and his floor could be, a setup closer guy. And I think that's a guy that a high scorer, I would think, could snag at 70 that already has the stuff there, just needs some, a little bit of polishing. And that's something that the Marlins are some of the best at, like probably a top 3 org at that. So.
Yeah, and with these picks, it's going a little more overall into maybe your rankings. Just how would you maybe rank maybe the needs for the Marlins looking at this draft? Would you say they need more infield help, a catcher, center field? How would you look at their needs heading into this draft?
Yeah, I would say, and I kind of made a little list here of some guys, and we already went over the guys in the first round. And I think in the second round, there are 2 guys that I really like. One guy that I posted a bunch about, Blake Burke, first baseman out of Tennessee. And it kind of stinks because, looking at the farm, you kind of see that Brock Vredenberg, who I thought was going to be a stud last year, and they drafted him just off his data in college, hasn't really panned out in his time in Jupiter. And same kind of with Kemp Alderman, who plays outfield but could also play first. So you kind of got to already look at like a pivot because Josh Bell is going to leave soon. So you need somebody to kind of go up there and just fill the hole for a little bit while you give these guys time to develop. And Blake Burke had a 31-game hit streak this year, 20 bags. He's one of the best spin hitters in the draft, like him and Ryan Waldschmidt, actually, which I liked. Good plate coverage, hits poolside bombs. But his big thing, which is holding him back, is his secondary pitch recognition isn't that good. He has some high chase rates that, hurt his projection as a first baseman, but I think his feel for his barrel and his crazy power should be able to secure him a big league role. And as long as his prior athleticism holds up, he'll be able to stick at first and not kind of leak into that DH spot. So that's somebody that I'd like at 56. And then another one is Griffo Farrell, who's a shortstop out of Virginia. He's kind of the opposite of Burke, where pretty low exit velos, but crazy contact rates, probably some of the best in the draft out of college. He's a little smaller, so limited physical tools, but, in terms of arm strength and power, but he makes up for plenty with super low whiff rates, super high swing decisions in the zone. I think he had 96% in-zone contact rate, which is crazy. And almost perfect footwork at second, gets it out quick, so that kind of takes it off his arm. But I would say those 2 are guys I'm looking at 56 that could if they can't get a true shortstop, if somebody doesn't fall in the first round, they can go with Farrell. Or, I see on some guys' boards that Nick Kurtz is starting to drop a little bit. So, again, if they can't really get a first baseman, and I kind of want them picking a first baseman at the lower parts anyways, you could go Blake Burke. So,
yeah, and, I was looking a little more. I wanted to go ahead and talk about some SEC guys. The first one that really comes up to me is Christian Moore. I saw you tweeting not too long ago about his exit velos and everything going on with him. And when you're looking at an SEC guy who can hit, the Marlins drafted Jacob Berry. Still tried to see what they have there with him. But with Christian Moore, maybe what would be the ultimate decision in terms of maybe drafting him, and maybe what would fit him for the affiliates?
Yeah, I'm pulling up his exit velos real quick. Yeah, he was 100th percentile and 90th percentile exit velo, and he was 99th in max EV. Got up to 117 exit velo and 99th percentile in just straight up exit velo. So he, crushes baseballs. I think the biggest thing to me, just looking at these numbers that I just pulled up between him and Cam Smith, is Smith has a little bit better swing decisions while still having the crazy exit velos that Christian Moore does. But I think another thing for me, and you can just watch it and the way that both of them play, is they play the game with so much passion and they play the game so hard. And, Christian Moore at second doesn't have the best actions, but just the way he's wired, he's going to go after every ball. He's going to put everything he has into every play. So I think that's a big plus for him too. And they're kind of the same player too. When you kind of look into the velos, like whether this season when they had harder spin or harder heaters, they didn't really waver with that. So, him too with Cam Smith, I would put those two as probably my two favorites where, if the Marlins go either way, I'm happy because great swing decisions. Cam Smith is a little bit better, but they both smash baseballs. So,
yeah, and I want to go ahead and keep going a little more in these positions. I want to go talk about the captain position. That seems like something Marlins have tried to fix. It seems like for ever since trading away J. Romuto, and I'm looking right now at your board. You have two catchers here within the top. I would say a couple picked with Malcolm Moore from Stanford and then Walker Jennings from Houston State. How would you like those two guys? Could they be potential fits? And maybe between the two guys, one coming from a mid-major and the other guy coming from power school.
Yeah, I think Malcolm Moore might go pretty early in the draft, depending on it, because great exit velos, really good swing decisions. He's a great hitter. He just had, if you look at his basic stats, you kind of be like, whoa, this wasn't really that good of a season. But he had terrible BABIP luck. But you kind of look under the hood and you see he's a really good hitter. And same with Walker Janik. His swing decisions aren't as good as Malcolm Moore, but he definitely makes up for it behind the plate. He has an absolute rocket as an arm. I think it's probably a 70 arm back there, kind of Will Banfield type arm. But yeah, I think Walker Janik would probably be there for the Marlins. I think Malcolm Moore will be gone way before 56. And I think when you look down at 56, you'll be able to get a Walker Janik or even, a Jacob Cozart down there from NC State. So,
yeah, and with those two guys as well, you mentioned arm the 70 grade. Just how would you look at? Maybe you could tell us some of the top defensive players in this draft, because again, the Marlins defense this season has not been the best, and it always helps when you have these top high quality defensive players. Are there any guys like that this draft, and maybe even some could potentially be on the Marlins radar?
Yeah, I think Ryan Walchman, who I brought up earlier. If Cam Smith and Christian Moore and these guys are somehow gone before the Marlins, I think that would be, a pick that they can look at. You watch, again, I think he's one of the best breaking ball hitters in the draft. His swing can get a little bit, pull heavy, which, when he gets in pro ball, that could hurt him a little bit, but crazy defensive skills in left field. You look at Honeycutt in center, like I said, crazy defender in center. Carson Benj actually in right, if they take him at 16, is not a bad fielder at all. Crazy athlete out there. And then, Griffith Farrell at short, who I mentioned is great. Walker Janik, who won the Buster Posey at catcher, is great. And then, pretty much all these guys are, it seems like as the game's growing, all these guys are getting super athletic, and they can pretty much play great defense, but those guys especially kind of catch my eye. So.
Yeah, and and going to the later rounds of the draft, especially for the Marlins, are there any potential guys that you could see that the Marlins maybe sneak up on, or maybe some guys who are your sleeper picks heading into those later day 2, day 3 rounds?
Yeah, and it's there's this one guy out of Bucknell, I believe. He's a third baseman, Sean Keys. Playing at a really smaller school. Would lead some orgs to, question his ability. I don't know why my camera's frozen, by the way, but threw up great exit velos, great swing decisions, great K to walk numbers. I was reading that, a lot of organizations are actually impressed by his defense because I think he's 6'2", 225-ish, so he's a really big dude. Swing has natural loft, but again, he's barely been tested against good pitching. And I was kind of looking back to last year's draft in that same way. And there's this guy, Mike Bovey, who came out of, let me double check what college he came out from, but it was another small school. He actually came out of Omaha, University of Nebraska, Omaha, and he's in the Brewer system up in Biloxi, and he's hitting 330 with a 860 OPS. So I think if the Marlins want to take a chance on a mid-major guy like that, that would be good. And then down in the 122 pick range, there's a guy that at the start of the year was kind of projected in the second round range, but his season kind of held him back. His name's Rodney Green. He plays center field, great power speed combo, but super high strikeout rate, and he's kind of got weird swing mechanics. But with the Marlins starting to get a better hitting development system, it seems like through what Kylie McDaniel was saying and what Joe Mack has said and stuff like that, that could be a sleeper guy where, if their dev is really on this uptrend and they can fix some of these swing things like they did with Joe Mack, this could be a guy that could be a really good player. So those are probably my 2 sleepers.
And also, mentioning kind of these late round type picks, a big thing about it is, trying to convince these high school players to not commit to their colleges and go pro. And you might have guys who get a couple $100,000 offers, maybe have $1 million offer, and the Marlins tried to do that not too long ago with Evan Crest, and then he ended up, I believe, going to Jacksonville. That's a type of player that that can really happen in the draft. Are there any types of that for the Marlins? Maybe a guy in the late rounds, they're like, hey, if we offer the kid $250,000, $300,000, he won't go college and he'll come straight to pros. Is there something like that the Marlins could potentially take a swing on late rounds?
Yeah, that's what I was going back to earlier with Carson Wiggins. I mean, money's always going to talk. And I think, if you do take, a Blake Burke or a Farrell like that at 56, that can really save you some money as compared to taking, a high school kid who's going to want that full slot or probably even a little bit above at that point. So, I think Carson Wiggins with the Marlins pitching dev would definitely be a guy that you could go over slot at 74 who would really pay dividends. So,
yeah, you can really do that. And, almost going from that and to the exact opposite, college seniors, a lot of guys who don't have another chance to go back to college, maybe they sign for $10,000, $20,000, and just someone that they're looking for opportunities to play in, almost in the filler rounds. Hey, we'll go give them $20,000, $15,000. Are there someone like that? But in terms of they actually have the qualities and not just $20,000, someone that can actually maybe outperform what they're getting from teams.
Yeah, there's let me see. Let me get the name right real quick. I believe he's a senior. Let me actually double check real quick. Don't want to mess it up, but I don't know if he has a 5th year. Yeah, Ryan Prager, A&M. I think he might have a 5th year, but really successful year in the SEC. Won pretty much every big game for Texas A&M, but threw up a 2.9 FIP, 26% K percentage to walk percentage. The pitch velos aren't really there, but throwing in the SEC competition like the SEC, got way above average whiff and chase and all that stuff on every pitch. And like I said, I don't know if he has a 5th year, but if he doesn't, that's a guy that the Marlins could easily throw underslot at the 122 probably, and be able to get him. So
yeah, no, overall for the Marlins, just for you, what do they have to do for this to be a successful draft? What counts as a success for the Marlins?
I think in these first two rounds, I would really like them to get college guys. Especially this year, there was so much talent in college. They really need, two guys with the 16 and 56 pick who can, really move pretty quick because, especially last year's draft, guys I thought Jake DeLeo was going to do really good. Obviously, they still can. They can still break out, but guys like DeLeo and, Vredenberg who aren't playing up to their potential quite, we're going to need guys that are kind of their reinforcements to kind of move up through. So I think, kind of going college heavy with those first two picks and then potentially freeing up, a high school project, stuff like that, guys that are pretty raw. But I think for it to be a success, they're going to have to get a proven guy like Cam Smith or a James Tibbs or a Christian Moore who have proven, through these last 2-3 years of their career that they could hit at the highest level, and then pretty much doing the same thing at 56. So.
Yeah, and last year, I don't think a lot of us had Noble Meyer as the first selection for the Marlins. I know we have a picture of all of our reactions. Maybe we can go Kyle Peel around that. Do you think the Marlins, at any chance in that 16th pick, can maybe surprise us? And maybe if they do you think they can even go with another pitcher and maybe a name that they might have any interest in?
I don't know, honestly, and I just think it's Frankie Polari, how he's kind of, wired now. It is a completely different, scouting department coming in, and I think what surprised us with Noble Meyer and looking back on it was, DJ Shfilek loves his high school arms, and even though, we all kind of feel like, like the Matt Shaw, the Jacob Gonzalez, like you said, the Kyle Teal, like we thought last year we were going to finally get a really good college hitter, and we ended up getting Noble Meyer, who still is, a top 50 prospect, great selection. But I think, the new scouting department and how they drafted with the Mariners, we can kind of expect for sure a bat, and I'm pretty confident we're going to see a college bat here.
Yeah, and before you go, I want to ask you, I'm gonna give you maybe some different traits, some different tools, and I want you to just tell me maybe who you think is the best at that, maybe who has maybe the highest grade you could say at this. So for like best power, who do you think this draft has the best power? And then we'll keep going on for a little bit.
I'd go power. I'd go Jack Caglione.
Do you see him pitching at all? How do you see that really quick?
I still think an organization is going to give him a chance pitching, obviously, because I think just the wear and tear, what we saw like in the regional and then super regional in Omaha with his velo being down was just wear and tear. But, I think an organization can give him a chance to pitch. And, if not, you're going to get a dude whose max exit velo was like 123 last year and his 90% exit velo was like 117 or something crazy. So I think he's definitely got the best power of this draft too.
Who do you think is for best contact? Who do you think is the best overall hitter?
I would probably best overall hitter. I would go Bazana. Condon is a little bit, it seems like that's who's going to go 1 or 2, Condon, Bazana, and I think Condon a little bit more patient than Bazana. Chase is a little bit more. They both have pretty much the same exit velo numbers, and they both don't really diminish with velo. But I mean, Bazana, lefty, tons of pop. I think he's my best hitter in the draft. So, and he was number 1 on my board. So.
And for fastest run for run and for maybe arm,
I would say, and I'm going to go kind of sneaky here with best speed in terms of twitch, is actually Honeycutt. I think he had like 25, 30 bags last year. So I'm going to go a little bit off the radar there and then go Honeycutt. And then what was the last one? Best arm?
For best arm.
I would probably go. Let me get the name right. I get all the dudes from Texas A&M mixed up because their staff was so deep. In terms of arm strength, I mean, you could go Chase Burns, but honestly, I think I'm going to circle back to. I think I'm going to go Brody Brecht. Actually, now that I think about it, from Iowa, sits 97 to 100, throws cutters at 88, 90, changes at like 90 to 94, and his slider's like 88. like 93, which I think is actually a curveball maybe, but I think he's definitely got the best pure arm talent in the draft.
Yeah, and just a couple more questions before we go. Do you think in this draft, I know it's maybe a bad comparison, but is there a potential Paul Skeens type player in this draft, either hitter or pitcher, where it's someone a year from now? I don't want to say the All-Star game, but are playing in a Major League Baseball game?
Let me think. I think it would probably be. I'd have to go with Bazana, to be honest. I think he's going to be one that shows up pretty much day one in the minors. If they choose to play him this year or next year, he's just going to come out pretty much like Skeens did and just instantly perform. And with an organization like the Guardians, they have Andres Jimenez at second, so I know they're probably looking forward to kind of getting a replacement there, just in terms of the offensive numbers. So I think Bazana, and then another one would be Caglione if he gets put with if the Rockies take him at 3, for instance. With the farm they have, and they kind of need some new energy up there, and they have that coming, with Dollander. So it could be one of those two, in my opinion, is Bazana or Cags.
Yeah, and second to last question for this, in the 16th pick, who do the Marlins take overall? Who do you right now? While we're recording this, who do you think the Marlins take at 16?
I think the Marlins take Cam Smith. I think that it's kind of go. I think the first 10 are going to go kind of as we've seen with the the Bazana, the Condon, the Rayner, Connor Griffin. Guys like that are going to stay in the top 10. And then I think the Mariners are going to go pitching or catching in front of the Marlins. The only other team that I could see maybe take Cam Smith is the Cubs, but I think the Cubs would maybe lean towards a Christian Moore just because of his postseason run over Cam Smith. So I do think that Cam Smith is going to be the Marlins pick at 16.
All right. So last thing, well, let's go a little bit into the future to 2025. Right now, the Marlins are seemingly tied for the best odds with the Rockies for 2025. Who are you looking at next year? Because when we have that draft stream, it's gonna be a fun one because the Marlins will most likely pick in the top 3, maybe even top 2. So who do you think? Who are the top guys for 2025?
Yeah, next year it's actually funny. It's all 3 outfielders, and my number one next year. I just tweeted about him. I've been tweeting about him, a little bit throughout the year about if the Marlins do get the first overall pick, and it's Jace Lavalette out of Texas A&M. 6'5" center fielder, robbed I think 2 home runs in Omaha, hit 30 home runs, stole 25 bags. I mean, just total 5-tool player out there in College Station. I think probably the second best player next year, again, another center fielder, is Cam Canarilla out of Clemson, who we all saw make that crazy Willie Mays catch in center field. Plays with a huge chip on his shoulder, great bat-to-ball skills, does chase a little bit, but makes up way more for it with his defense and bat-to-ball skills and power. And then I think the third one is an outfielder, Devin Taylor out of Indiana, who I'm pretty high on. Had a really good summer with Team USA. I think he had a 109, 110 exit velo bomb with them. Plays great outfield, has always performed in his first 2 years at Indiana. Kind of got off to a slow start this year, which I was kind of shocked with, and then caught fire halfway to the back end part of the season. So those 3 are my big 3 guys for next season.
Yeah, we'll see next year. Maybe it's a quick stream, see what the Marlins can do there, see how the odds are in their favor. But Jab, I appreciate it. It's a small pod, but we had to bring you on for a little longer. You won't be with us on stream, but I know you will have your live tweets, your reactions also for that 16th pick. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I'll be live tweeting every pick like last year again. So I appreciate everything as always.